Hey,
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining PCCS's emPower Hour. My name is Alyssa D'Agosto,
my name is Kevin Roman.
and we're here today with a special guest Lainie Ishbia of Trend-ABLE. Hi, Lainie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we're really happy to have you. So, Lainie, can you tell us a little bit about yourself for those who are watching?
Sure. Well, as you said, my name is Lainie Ishbia, and I am a 51, which is hard to swallow and say out loud, year-old woman. I'm from Michigan. I have a blog and a website and a community and a podcast as part of Trend-ABLE and the Embrace It community. I also have a neuromuscular condition called Charcot-Marie tooth disease, which has literally nothing to do with teeth. It's 3 doctors named it Charcot-Marie tooth. And similar to MS, but totally different. It is a peripheral neuropathy that affects me, my hands and my feet. It was hereditary, but slowly progressive. My mom had it. She passed away a couple years ago, and one of my kids has it. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
All right, cool. Wow, could we get into, I guess, let's start a little more about like your journey. How was that? How was your journey essentially on a personal level?
Sure. With having a disability, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, so growing up, it wasn't something that, I really paid attention to, because as a little kid, I just was awkward at anything involving moving, I guess. I mean, I could walk, I could barely run, but I had a operation on both my feet going into high school. Actually, my 9th grade. Going into 9th grade, I had what's called a triple arthrodesis. Basically, both my feet were fused. And that was when I, for the first time, really felt like I had a disability. I had to be in a wheelchair for a year to recover from this. And I had no more movement in my ankles. It was really to prevent, that's what they did then. They didn't know a lot about the condition. And they did that to prevent ankle sprains and whatnot. But for me, it made it so that I was no longer able to do some things like jumping or running. I was definitely not picked first for gym class, and spent, much of my life kind of avoiding physical activities because I thought I couldn't. Yeah, today, I guess my bigger problem is with my hands more than my feet. I wear leg braces full time, which are called AFOs. And the leg braces go up to my knees. They really allow me to do anything. I'm very lucky in that, I could walk 10 miles because of the braces, whereas without braces, I definitely couldn't walk 2 blocks. So my bigger problem now is more with my fine motor weakness. I call my disability an invisible disability. And because you really don't see it. If you saw me walking down the street, you wouldn't know what I deal with or what I struggle with, which is really one of the reasons I started Trend-ABLE, is because you don't know what people deal with. And, I have to find and have had to find workarounds for doing things that I want to do, which is everything. And, I really now help people to find those workarounds for themselves so that they can put on makeup, so that they can go to parties, they could go to a pool, and little tips and tricks for, being able to do those things if you don't choose to tell the whole world you have a disability. So, and yeah.
Oh, wow, I love that. And I love the segue. So, can you tell us, for those who don't know, what is Trend-ABLE? Tell us about your business.
Yes.
Okay, well, Trend-ABLE started out as a website. I started it 3 years ago, and it was really focused at the beginning on, self-esteem and helping others to look and feel their best. We all know that, half the battle is really just having the motivation to do the things that are harder for people with disabilities, like getting dressed, like putting on makeup if you're choose to wear makeup. See, I was trying to be all PC there. I think I did good.
Fine. Yeah,
So I don't even know if PC is a term. That is like aging me. But you know, like half the battle is just getting up and getting out and not sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. So that's what Trend-ABLE is about. It's about inspiring people to, you know, wear the clothes they want to wear. There's a ton now since I've started, you know, since I started 3 years ago, adaptive fashion is a thing. Certain brands like Tommy Hilfiger and others are, you know, creating clothing for people with disabilities, where I personally want to wear whatever I want to wear. So although I appreciate that there's a special line of clothing,
right.
I help people find clothing that you can find at the mall or online that is disability friendly, that doesn't require fine motor coordination and, you know, pull on styles. Also, I focus a lot on shoes. That's where I would say most of my followers are, you know, that's what they follow me for, is shoes for people who wear leg braces. That was also a big part of why I started Trend-ABLE, is that when I got my leg braces, the podiatrist and the orthotist at the time basically handed me these plastic ugly things and were like, yeah, from now on, you will be wearing, you know, sneakers, New Balance specifically, and, you know, good luck.
So much for Nike, right? No Nikes.
Right. And I always was into fashion. And although I was never myself able to wear high heels or anything, I definitely wasn't into wearing like grandma shoes. And so I cried. I mean, I was literally depressed. And doctors and a lot of orthotists, you know, I'm generalizing here, you know, that they would consider a superficial element. Like that's not their thing. They're like, you can walk, be grateful. Right. Like, but we know the effects that, like, if you don't feel good about yourself and how you look and how you present yourself in the world, well, you certainly, that comes out to other people. And so I made it my mission to find workarounds for people who wear leg braces. And I discovered, for example, although it's not written in the rules and the instructions when you get braces, it definitely says wear a lace-up shoe. My feeling is that the braces are what does the work for people who wear leg braces. Like, you know, the reason you wear them is that they are the support. They do help you if you have what's called foot drop, like I have. So anything that fits and that you can walk comfortably in, I'm like, that's what I wear. And I'm not a doctor. And, you know, people know their own bodies. But, you know, I found, for example, since I couldn't wear heels, platform shoes, which are basically a platform that's all even and elevated, that gave me height. And that made me feel sexy. And I was like, wow, like I could wear these. And, you know, going to plus size stores, even though I'm not a plus size person, plus size stores have trendy shoes in wide width sizes, and they fit, some of them fit my leg braces. So Trend-ABLE really like helps people every season find boots right now. And I give tips for, you know, what to look for if you wear orthotics or have problem feet and that kind of thing.
Wow, that's awesome. I guess, can you talk a little bit about phones, work? Okay,
there's that.
There we go. You know, you were saying how you kind of were just basically told, hey, this is kind of what it is. You should be happy that you're walking, deal with it. Can you talk a little bit about your perspective on society as a whole? It sounds like you kind of had to build this from scratch. Like it wasn't there and then had to develop it. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, is society just not inclusive enough at where we're at? Where should it be? Things like that.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like in general, the society is made for people who are able-bodied, right? Like people take for granted small things every single day that someone with disabilities would struggle with. And a lot of it is ignorance. A lot of it is money. It costs more to add Velcro, I would imagine, and different fasteners for different people. And it's not really, thought of, because for the most part, people with disabilities have just accepted what is there, and they haven't, advocated to, nowadays it's changing. But in the past, it's like, okay, here's a catalog for a home health care company, and these are the shoes that you could wear. And if you looked at it and cried like I did, it was like, okay, well, deal with it, mourn the loss of what you could wear, and move on. But I don't accept that, and I don't think others who are like me should. And the more of us out there wanting to see things for people with disabilities, the more that, and we're buying them, people obviously will make them. So the best products obviously are ones that are inclusive for all, like those EXO brand, kitchen appliances. Like that's not specifically for people with disabilities, but obviously it's great because of the grip, the rubber, the bigger parts. And as it turns out, obviously the world also likes that better. So hopefully someday, that's how clothing will be, where you can just go on someone's website and click, no zipper, Velcro, all of those things. So.
Wow. Yeah. It's funny because there's so many things that when things are inclusive, we don't even realize how beneficial it is to everybody. How many people will go up a ramp instead of using stairs because it's easier on their knees, and had there not been the need for that ramp in the first place, they wouldn't have that.
Right.
It doesn't seem like fashion isn't quite making that jump just yet, but it seems like there's progress in that area.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, many people associate people with disabilities with people who use wheelchairs or walkers. And there's still a lot of learning to do about people with invisible disabilities, invisible illnesses as well, who the ramp may not be necessary, but having that close parking space is. And, unfortunately, still people who hang their, disabled place card thing up, get attacked. Like, you don't have a disability, and everybody is struggling with something. And, my part of my coming out as having a disability years ago was really to just let people know, like, what you see is not necessarily what someone is. I am a suburban mom. I have a good life. I go on vacations. I have a nice house and 2 dogs and cute kids and all of that. But like, I also have these everyday challenges. And when you open up about that, you become much more accessible to people. And then people also then feel comfortable to share their own struggles.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times I've been in the field of disability for many years, and every year there's always something new that I didn't even think of, that I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I guess that makes sense that it should be more accessible. A lot of people don't even realize the things that other people would have to go through, and how it needs to be more accessible in general. A lot of what you're saying involves a good deal of like advocacy. And on your website, I see that you had your blog, you have blog posts, you have a podcast, which we'll definitely get into. And I know I'm jumping around a lot, but can you talk a little about the need for advocacy? What made this from, oh, I would like some leg braces that make me feel good, to I need to talk on this?
Yeah, I didn't like start out thinking, oh, I want to be like a disability advocate. Like, I'm definitely that wasn't at all something I was interested in or my goal. But, just by being in this space and being out there and being vocal and showing the leg braces and talking about things like, for example, parking meters. I mean, parking meters for people who have hand-related challenges are a challenge. Putting a credit card in, putting change in is very difficult if you don't have a pincher grip. So I wasn't meaning to be like, oh, political or anything. It was just me telling my own story, sharing other people's stories. And, um, I'm an advocate for myself all the time. I am, if you can't tell, I'm fairly assertive. And I guess I realized that when I started this, there's a lot of people who are not. And, I didn't know that there's a lot of people who as simple things like Googling, shoes for leg braces, they get stuck, or overwhelmed or don't know what to do. And so that's where I come in, because I love research and I love finding things, and I'm good at, finding things that I need. So sharing the things that I need with others has helped others too. So it's a win-win.
I love that. So I love that you were talking about how you didn't really see yourself as an advocate. You were just kind of like, I'm just in this. Last week we actually had two guests that we were talking about advocacy and allyship. What does being an ally mean to you? What would that look like in the community to be a disability ally?
Yeah. So when I think of an ally, obviously I think of a partner, but I also think of just people being open, being aware that everyone could be dealing with something. A lot of people struggle with embarrassment and shame. And, I think people don't know what to say to someone. They don't know if they should ask them what's wrong with you, or just, they think they're not staring, and that makes the other person feel self-conscious. So I think just asking these questions and watching shows like yours and all of that makes everybody grow. Everyone's an individual, right? So I certainly couldn't tell you, this is what you should say to someone with a disability, because everyone's different. But I can tell you that there's a lot of insensitivity out there, a lot of I was about to say dumb, but that wouldn't have been PC. A lot of people who, are not so sensitive and who do absolutely the wrong thing. So, and the wrong thing would be, for example, grabbing someone's wheelchair and pushing them across the street because you think you're helping, or, staring at someone and not saying a word. Maybe that person is staring at you because they know someone who has your condition and you look like that person, but the person on the receiving end doesn't know that. So, take that next step and say, hey, I didn't mean to be staring at you, but, it looks like you walk similar to how my aunt does. I'm curious if you don't mind sharing, do you have whatever? And that person may or may not feel comfortable responding, and that's okay. But it's way better to initiate the conversation in a respectful way than to just stare at someone or to make an assumption about them.
Yeah. So I know we were briefly touching on your blog and podcast. Can we talk a little bit more about your podcast specifically? We're so interested in people's podcast journeys, because that's really what we wanted to start was a podcast, and we kind of came here. So, please tell us about it.
Sure. So I have a friend, her name is Estella Lugo, and she works for a nonprofit called the Hereditary Neuropathy Foundation, HNF for short. And they really help people mostly with Charcot-Marie-Tooth, the disease I have, but any type of hereditary neuropathy. They do research and fundraising and advocacy and all of that. But she and I became instant friends a couple years ago and do a lot of speaking. We've spoken at the Abilities Expos. We spoke at Pinterest. We spoke for this. I forgot. Now I'm forgetting the name of it. But we've done a lot of before COVID. We did a lot of live workshops on self-advocacy and assertiveness and self-esteem when you have a disability. And obviously with COVID and the lack of in-person stuff, although we had kind of talked about doing a podcast before all of that, we just got it going. And it's called Embrace It. get the double meaning, embrace
love
it.
it.
I love it.
And I'm wearing the t-shirt.
Yes.
Wow,
So-
yes.
Yeah, so embrace it with Estella and Lainie. And we have all these amazing guests on, and people in the disability community who are like amazing. And, people say inspiring. This is like inspiring to a whole new level. Like, we had a makeup artist on who she has no use of her hands whatsoever. And she uses her feet to her toes to hold makeup brushes, and literally is so talented. We've had many different guests, like, now of course I'm forgetting all of them, but like we had a disability attorney on talking about disability rights and and workplace and discrimination and all of that. And we just had one of my favorite podcasts was with a woman who's a dwarf, and talking about her life and her experiences. And she's super funny and cool. And even though, I am not a dwarf myself, I was able to relate and on so many levels with her story as someone who has a disability. So we've had all these cool guests, and we help people, and we talk about disability, and we show people what it can be like to live your best life, regardless of your physical challenges.
We're going to definitely drop that link later on in the conversation, because when you guys, all our audience, we're done here, you can just hop over to the podcast, and it's just a natural continuation of
Absolutely.
Essentially. Love that. You had mentioned, obviously, COVID and the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Can we talk a little bit about how that has transitioned for you, the business wise, as well as disability wise? I mean, there's been a lot of more accessible features in terms of a Zoom call rather than sometimes a face-to-face. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, so obviously this whole year, no one knows what date it is. Like the whole,
I was just saying the same thing today.
I mean,
have no idea
what year is it? Like what date it is? Yeah. So, I mean, for me personally, it was my last year with my kids. I'm now an empty nester. My last one just went to college. So it was really amazing to have a year home with one of my kids who was a college student who wouldn't have been home. And then my son's last year with all his friends here, obviously very checking for COVID and all of that, of course.
Right.
But we were that house that people outside came over and hung out at. In terms of Trend-ABLE, people, it didn't feel good for me during the heart of this pandemic to be talking about shoes, given that no one really was going anywhere. So I kind of, was a little lost, like everyone, unmotivated. I did talk a lot about exercising, because my biggest fear was like, for me, not just vanity, although vanity is a big part of it, but I have to exercise every day, because if, the cliche, you don't use it, you lose it, is very true when you have a progressive condition that can weaken your muscles. And the only way for me to stay strong is through exercise. So I had to motivate, and that meant, encouraging also my online people to also keep moving, and whether it was with bands or whatever. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people who are not, who are on different support groups and whatnot, who spend a lot of time online already, it wasn't so great, because when you sit around thinking about your challenges and your pain and all of that, it definitely, it's like if someone gets stung by a bee right by you and you're like, ouch, I think that unfortunately that contagion happens online, and people are like, oh, I have that. And so I really tried to stay off of Facebook as much as I could, and not get sucked into that, because the negativity is contagious. And it's not like I wake up every day going, woo, lollipops and rainbows, but I make a conscious effort to try to get going, do something, you know, have a routine. And yeah, so I don't know if that answers, but yeah.
No, I love that. I love that. You know, you got to build the environment to be positive around you, and then, you know,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I love how connected you were within the community, you know, pre-COVID, now kind of through COVID. I'm sure that even on like a personal level, I mean, I don't want to speak for yourself, but I know even for us, we were in such a weird space that being able to talk to other people through a computer screen kind of kept that connection alive and that human interaction that we all need. So I'm sure that you probably felt that too.
Absolutely. And I feel I'm happy for people with chronic illnesses who, you know, now a lot of people in this world are hopefully more sensitive to their batteries being low, to not having energy, to not being able to go out if they're not, you know, if they're worried about other people being sick. So I think hopefully, you know, that is a, you know, silver lining, which is that people, you know, like you had said before, Zoom is like in the vocabulary. I mean, you would have to be living under a rock not to have had a Zoom call during this whole past year and a half. But, you know, this wasn't something that was everyday common. And so now that it is, it's a good thing. We at Embrace It and Trend-ABLE, we're actually right now currently developing an online, a digital course. And that's going to be our pivot for the future. So we're creating a course called How to Be a Disability Badass. And it's going to be a 6-week course. And it's going to include everything from self-advocacy to ableism to, you know, mobility devices and finding your own sense of style and all of that. So we're excited about it. It's a lot of work, but we're working on it. So
I love that. We're calling dibs already. When this launches,
we want to be
please
a part of
have come over
yeah,
again.
hell yeah,
So
that would
we
be
can
great.
chit-chat about this because that's amazing. I really love that.
Definitely. So besides that, where else do you see yourself going from here?
Well, let's see. Personally, again, I was very fortunate. I told you guys I'm an empty nester, and now during the pandemic, we rented a house in Florida for a couple months with my kids and whatnot towards the end, and we now have that house. So I'm now never have to do winter again, which I live in Michigan.
Lucky.
It's, you know what? I mean, it's so lucky, but also like, I don't even understand with my body and neuropathy, like cold weather is the worst.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to not having to deal with that. In fact, I'm selling all my sweaters now on Poshmark. So yeah, so I mean, I see this course really being amazing and evolving. I see hopefully us doing a lot more in-person stuff. I hopefully someday will get involved with creating a shoe line. It's not like there's so many shoes that could be easily adapted for people with who wear leg braces that I do work with a few companies right now to help them. And I hope to do more of that so that I can like take their brand that I like already and make it work for me and for others. And I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
I love it.
Nice. I love it.
A lot of good
Right?
stuff ahead.
Very
Yeah.
exciting stuff.
So Lainie, please tell us, where can we find you? How do we get in touch with you? For those who want to get to know more about Trend-ABLE.
Yeah. So first step is definitely check out the website. I have so many blogs and so many articles on especially if you wear leg braces, on navigating the world and tips and self-esteem. And that's the word trend with the hyphen, a dash, trendable.com. So you can start there. I'm also on Instagram at trend.able because they don't allow a dash. or on Facebook, Trend-ABLE, Lainie. Our podcast, which we talked about before, which you're including the link, is Embrace It with Lainie and Estella. If you can't spell my name, it's okay. Just put Estella, it'll come up. And yeah, so that's where you can find me. And please always feel free to DM me. I have a lot of people who, you know, with the shoes that I post online, still have questions or don't know what will work and are looking for, like, they're going to someone's wedding and they don't know what they could wear. And so I send links and help people on the side as well. No charge, just the people can feel free to DM me or email me at info@trend-able.com.
That's amazing.
Wow.
I just love the ongoing connection, you know, like it just, you don't shut it off, which I love.
Yeah,
I
right.
really love that.
Wow.
Style never sleeps.
I know, right?
Except for me, I'm about to go to sleep. Kidding.
Amazing.
Oh, I love it.
No, I have a 4 o'clock rule, so it's not quite there.
That's so smart.
Someday you'll be there too.
I love that. I don't have like an off button. Like it'll be 7, 8 o'clock. I'm like, oh, I should check my email. I should see what's going on.
Not check your email.
I should see what's going on.
We're gonna have a whole episode on mental health, and you know what? We'll talk to you about that.
Yeah, no, shut it down.
Right.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank you so much, Lainie, for taking the
thank
time
you.
out and connecting with us and chatting. It was really so nice to meet you.
We
Thank
really
you
would love to have you
guys.
back.
This was really cool. And I certainly would love to come back, especially when we have the course to launch. That would be amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me, you guys. And I hope my followers, when I get this, I will link it to them so that they can check out your awesome nonprofit as well.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate
We really appreciate that. So for our viewers, please make sure you follow Trend-ABLE on all social media platforms. And until then, we will see you next time. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Bye.